Welcome to the Stanley Park Ecology Society. We're an environmental nonprofit organization. We work in partnership with the Vancouver Parks Board. A big role of what I do is I try to engage people like you, bring people in the community out to do habitat restoration in the park.
And we'll stop there and I'll kind of point out some of the features of Beaver Creek.
That's kind of exciting because it means that we're not just going on interpretive walks. We actually get to touch these things. We actually get to change the face of the park and hopefully improve it in the long run. What we can see here is a really diverse ecosystem. You can see young trees coming up. You can look around the edges of it and see some of those older trees that are in the back that are going to be great habitat for some of those nesting birds that need those higher branches, contrasting with those lower trees where we can have small mammals, amphibians living in there. So this is really prime habitat in the park, and that's actually a result of a windstorm.
4 or 5 of you guys can walk.
The project that we're working on today and over the next few months is actually going into some of these blowdown areas in the park, because while this is great, what happens when you have all this light coming in is invasive species like Himalayan blackberry just have a heyday. And what they can do, unfortunately, is they can suppress the growth of some of the native species.
So we're actually taking the material that is the byproduct of our first problem, the invasive species, and we're using it to solve the second problem, which is the erosion. We're doing a little bit of terraforming to shift where the both water flow as well as debris flow would be.
Learning about being able to repurpose and recycle things from the environment and bringing it back to protect the environment, I think is a really cool concept.
The Eco Stewards is open to everybody, and it's just a really good program to help the general public get to know nature and get to see what's in their backyard. The problem with invasive species is that they take over an area and they can prevent native species from growing.
So part of what we're doing is looking at how we can repurpose invasive species, how we can find uses for the plants that we've got that we don't want. When you work with fresh material, fresh things shrink as they dry. You can do this rope making technique on a really, really fine, tiny, tiny, tiny scale, or you can do it really big and fat. It's just something that is a visual reminder of what's happening under the soil and becomes an artwork that is going to sit on top of the surface.
I think everyone's getting a lot of joy, a lot of experience in how to repurpose materials and to be aware of how you can use the land to protect the land.
So what we're going to be doing is weaving a two-system fence. We're in a place that is Coast Salish territory. There are ancestors here that go back millennia. We're doing an intervention today that is going to impact the future. What we plant today is going to grow, is going to fill in, is going to protect the species that are on the other side and create a space that's going to be honored and respected and participate in how humans continue to be here.
It's important because we're protecting a natural habitat.
Right from there, and we'll come around this way. To try and make sure you've got as consistent as possible all along the rod.
Coming together on a project that you can't do as an individual, but as a group with many hands, it goes very fast.
It's finding these plants that work and fit within the ecosystem, and which ones will help other species, and then using those and helping the native species grow while trying to grow the invasive species so that native life can flourish.
For instance, your left side is going to cross over the right side.
Yellow flag iris, it's an aquatic invasive species. It has taken over areas of Lost Lagoon, it's taken over Beaver Lake, and it does take away habitat that are used for nesting birds. We're taking invasive species and we're actually making bird habitat out of natural materials.
The blackberry, and just try running it down.
So something like weaving is fantastic because it's so tactile, and you get to really use your hands and you get to be more connected to the environment that you're working with and the materials that you're working with. Sharon's done a number of workshops, including an Earth Day event where she had the public weaving baskets and creating bio-knitting.
Now, the netting that we have is kind of the key part of this installation project.
From some of these areas where they're going.
Okay. We're going to put fresh plantings in of some native species in some of the areas and add some mulch and some leaves underneath the netting and then stake the netting on top. As it's biodegrading, the plants that we've put in are going to root and take over stabilizing the hill.
Like 1 or 2 little spacing away from me, and it's coming up from the bottom.
What Sharon is doing with community work, with the rewilding and with the weaving with invasive species is really a fantastic project. I just hope more people learn about this kind of community venture and get involved.
I'm ecstatic that I've brought my children here today because I know that in the future they can come back at any time, but they can also bring their children. Their children can bring their children. We're all going to be able to connect here and be proud of what we did together.